The Wayward Realms is an indie-developed open-world RPG game that is in early development and just launched a Kickstarter campaign to raise the funds they need to make this game a reality. But why am I talking about it? Well, the last Kickstarter that I supported was actually Kingdom Come Deliverance, and honestly, I'm going to be supporting this one for pretty much the same reason. There's something about this game that makes me really want to see it happen, and honestly, it comes down to how they describe the game on their own webpage. Here's how they describe it. The Wayward Realms is in early development. Under the direction of Ted Peterson and Julian LaFay, veteran game developers. Actually, they were two of the lead developers behind the team of Arena and Daggerfall, the first two Elder Scrolls games. Once Lost Games is creating a new open-world fantasy RPG. This new setting, the Wayward Realms, aims to revivify? I really never know how to say that word. The RPG genre by applying modern development standards and quality of life advancements to the design philosophy of classic role-playing games. Choice, consequence, scope, and role-playing will be experienced like never before, with in-depth class and combat systems, a myriad of complex and dynamic faction relations, and realistically scaled open world where players will experience a new class of game, the Grand RPG. The last bit's a little bit marketing speak, but it's this part. The modern development standards and quality of life advancements to the design philosophy of classic role-playing games. Basically what I read from this is that they want to make an old-school game with all the modern trimmings and trappings. They basically want a sort of Daggerfall experience, but on a modern engine with modern quality of life features. And honestly, I am here for that. Now, it might be down to massive nostalgia for those sort of games, and I just want to play something similar in a more modern, engine. Or it might be because I've got a soft spot for the small dev teams who are following a dream. But mostly, I just want to see something different. Something that dares to follow its own path rather than treading that well-worn safe path that many games do. Kingdom Come Deliverance did that, and I never regretted supporting that game. Looking at the Steam page for The Wayward Realms, it's flagged as an RPG open-world fantasy first person. I've not seen any hints that there will be third-person support, so those of you who are third-person or Riot, you may want to take note of that. But if I scroll down to where they discuss the game, I'm going to focus on where it says, a massive world. No, really. Way bigger than most other games you can think of. Big cities with hundreds of thousands of NPCs, deep, dark, dangerous forests, gigantic mountain ranges, sprawling swamps and marshlands, vast oceans and more, brought to life through dynamic procedural generation. Now, this might set off some warning bells because of Starfield, but tens of thousands of games have had procedurally generated worlds and have been brilliant. Daggerfall is a classic example of this. Next, we have constantly evolving experience and story. A virtual game master keeps things interesting for you, making other characters and their factions react and plot their next move based on your actions, resulting in no two players having the exact same game experience. Pretty lofty goals. This is the sort of thing we like to see in our RPGs. The more of it, the better. Real role-playing. You're not playing some pre-baked warrior or mage, but a character class of your design, with customized skills and abilities to craft your own spells, potions, and enchantments. Want to try playing a character who is really, really outside the box? We got you. Playing a character who is really, really outside the box? Why do I feel like that's a direct challenge to me? A world full of lore. We call it Wayward Realms for a reason. On the surface, things may have that familiar medieval fantasy look, but dig a bit deeper and there's a lot to learn. From the multiple moons in the sky, to the library's worth of books, to the multiple cultures of each race, there is always something new to discover. And in actual fact, there is a page on the official site called the Library of Logos that has already got some books listed that you can read, and I'm definitely going to be giving those a read later on. Now, for the Kickstarter campaign, they have released a gameplay trailer that gives you an idea of how far they have come, what the game will kind of look like, and how it will play. I get a kind of Oblivion vibe from it. Oblivion, but with a lot more atmosphere. Although I said the same thing about Kingdom Come Deliverance. It seems like Oblivion was in that sweet spot of modern and slightly old school RPG vibe. That's what always comes to mind when I see games that try to go old school. The video is low frame rate though, and they're using motion blur, so it's probably the game itself being low frame rate rather than the recording, and they're trying to hide that. This isn't too big of a surprise though, as it is very early days and optimization is going to be a long ways off. We got to see some climbing, some stealth, magic, and we got to see the dialogue, which definitely looks very old school. I'm talking Morrowind, Daggerfall sort of old school. There didn't seem to be any actual voice lines for the protagonist or the NPCs at this point. No way to know if that's going to change, but right now it's best to assume that it probably won't. It's going to be more like Daggerfall and Morrowind. If I'm wrong about that, that's a pleasant surprise. We saw some first-person horse riding, Kingdom Come Deliverance flashback right there. Also a lot of head bob when running as the character. Again, Kingdom Come Deliverance flashback, and I'm really hoping that's going to be optional, although the game does seem to have an in-game body for the player, and it's possible that the view is locked to the body's animation, which might mean it could be a bit problematic. If there's not an option to disable it, I do hope there's a mod that will disable it. Not a big fan of that level of head bobbing. We saw some combat, and at first it looked kind of basic, but then they showed a first-person dodge animation, and honestly, I found myself kind of liking it. And some of the weapon impacts seemed pretty solid as well, with the sword getting stuck in an enemy's helmet for a second. Not sure why, but I really did like that for some odd reason. And there was kicking and spell combat. All of it looked pretty solid. There's actually something about the combat in general with both swords and bow that again had a hint of Kingdom Come Deliverance to it. Not the mechanics or the difficulty of that game, but it looked like the bow had a little bit of wobble at full draw and there was no crosshair. So it was giving me a kind of semi-hardcore feeling. Not quite as brutal and soul-crushing as Kingdom Come Deliverance could be at first, but a little more engaged and nerve-wracking than something like Skyrim. But that's just the feeling I was getting from the limited footage. All in all though, I liked what I saw. I thought the game looked pretty atmospheric. I liked the lighting, the dark. It definitely seemed a bit intimidating compared to some of the more modern games we play. So yeah, generally very positive, other than the frame rate, the motion blur and the head bobbing. Now, there are a lot more details regarding their aims, their goals for this game on the Kickstarter page, and I encourage you to go and read that. But of special interest to me were the 4 core game pillars that they listed: scope, choices, consequences, and role-playing. Under scope, they say, the Wayward Realms offers a massive procedurally generated world with plenty of variety in the environments and locales. Dungeons and cities are crafted to feel unique from one another, offering limitless options for layouts and aesthetics. The world itself is ever-changing, cities can grow, deteriorate, or be entirely destroyed by war, and the sky, landscape and flora change with the seasons. That's really ambitious. Likewise, the world building runs deep and thousands of years worth of history through item description, dialogue, lore books, and ancient runestones that dot the land. Players will be able to learn about the world, its history, and various factions, and the people who've chosen to make the archipelago their home. Choices. The Wayward Realms gives players truly meaningful choices with the potential for lasting effects on the world and your experience of it. From your race, equipment, or skills to narrative and gameplay tactics or your involvement, or lack thereof in world events, everything is a choice. Meaningful choices go far beyond what sword you equip and how you choose to talk to an NPC. Our skill system is designed to encourage a wide variety of builds, specializations, and each choice shapes your character in unique ways. The more you invest in a skill, the wider the variety of options available to you in how you might utilize it. I mean, this is all great, and it definitely suggests that there will be a lot of replayability in this game. Consequences. Players' actions will have consequences, both good and bad. There is no such thing as a failed quest in the Wayward realms. Tell that to some of the people who comment in my videos. Only results and future consequences. Depending on how your choices affected the outcome, whether those are positive or negative will be up to the world to decide and for the player to experience, as every choice leads to some kind of change. You could improve or degrade your ability to join certain factions, the amount and kind of reputation you earn, and how the world reacts to your presence. For some odd reason, this is making me remember my current playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3. Don't ask, please, about the consequences. Role-playing. While other RPGs railroad their players into specific roles, the Wayward Realms lets players decide what type of character they wish to play, who they would side with, and what actions that character would actually perform. For this reason, we have chosen to forgo a traditional main quest in order to craft many smaller and more varied narratives for our factions, which will appeal to a broad swathe of character types. The player can further shape their story by how they choose to deal with major world events. World events capitalize there. They can take part and influence the outcomes, or simply stand by and live with whatever consequences these events bring to the world. Finally, our virtual game master will take a character's playstyle and tailor the quests, encounters, and rewards around them, much like a real-life tabletop game master. So no traditional main quest, lots of factions, lots of faction quests, and these world events. That is very, very interesting. I'm going to be fascinated to see how well that works out. In theory, it could work out absolutely superbly. You only have to think of games like Skyrim to think, how would the game be if I ignored the main quest? And pretty much most of you are going, yeah, we've all done that. We've all done that 20 times. So it's definitely doable. Now, I'm not going to read any of the other details. There are loads of them, and I do encourage you to go and read the entire page. It's pretty exciting for someone like me who is interested in this sort of game, and I'm definitely going to be pledging enough to get early access to the game. Yes, I am. But for you, the viewer, you are going to have to decide whether or not this is something you want to and indeed can support. Understand the risks of a Kickstarter funded game and the rewards. The risks are, it may not be as good a game as you want it to be, and you've already put some money into it. It could even be a complete failure. You never know. The rewards are, you get a game that was developed with the funds that came from the players themselves, from people who had an interest in the game, and hopefully this will guide the development in a good direction. This is the sort of thing that you really only want to support if you are willing to risk the money you are supporting. That's the hard truth of crowdfunding, I'm afraid. I'm willing to do it because I really want to see this game. I want to see a game like this in the, I don't know what we call it, the 2020s, and experience it. Partly for nostalgia, partly for curiosity, but honestly, because I just think I'm going to enjoy this game. And let's face it, that's the best possible reason.
I'm sorry. You say you would rather just spend your time fishing?